Hey, so I'm working on the Ruger Red Label shotgun case here. And right now I'm working on cutting and mounting the top hinged cover. And it's gonna be recessed down in this pocket by the thickness of the aluminum panel. So the aluminum panel will be framed by a little ledge of wood around it. And so what I have to do now is remove some wood along this back where the hinge will mount to recess that down so that the aluminum can be mounted flush. So I've got this nice sheet of aluminum here, but before I can go to cut it, I need to know exactly, what size to cut it to. And so here's my hinge right here, and it's going to mount right across here on the back. Of course, I'm going to cut the hinge. I'll use a high-speed cutoff wheel to get that cut. But what I need to do is recess this back piece of wood where the hinge will mount so that this top surface of the hinge is flush with this surface of the frame, which is also recessed even more. So what I did is I measured it, and it's about 5 millimeters thick. And so what I want to do is remove 5 millimeters across the back here. And so there's a lot of different ways I could do it. I thought about using my router, but it would present a problem with how there's already a recess here, and once I cut that away, then this will drop some, and will become a little unstable. It'll just kind of be hanging out there. So I think what I'm going to do is run the saw along this way. I'm going to use a table saw and set the blade height so it just cuts the 5 millimeters all the way across. And then I'll come in with a handsaw and just cut that on each end. And that way this can be mounted flush. And so the bottom of the hinge right here, that'll be screwed down into the wood with some flush mount screws. And the top here, I haven't decided yet. I'm going to do some testing. I might just do some spot rivets with my welder, or I might use regular rivets. I'm not sure. I'm looking into, in the past I've used screws and nuts and rivets, so I've done both of those. I'm thinking about doing something different on this one, but whatever I cut off of here, I'm going to use to test with on a piece of scrap aluminum and see what my other options might be. But for now, I'm going to set up my table saw and remove this piece along the back, and then I can measure, and I'll go ahead and screw this down a little bit, and then I can measure the aluminum and cut the aluminum, and then work on attaching it to here. And then the only thing left after that, I've already got the pockets for the Zeus hardware, latching hardware here. All I have to do is mount the studs. There'll be 3 studs that latch into these latches here. And then I have to blow it all apart, take all the hardware back off, sand it down, and seal it, and then put it back together, and then it's finished. So right now I'm going to set it up on a table saw and get ready to make this cut here. Hey, so I'm working on the Ruger Red Label gun case here. I've got the bottom made, and I've got the pieces that support the gun made. And now I'm working on fitting the hinge and the top cover. I've got an aluminum piano hinge here that I'm going to be using. I'm going to need to cut it to length. But the first thing I need to do is trim this piece back here where the hinge will go. I need to drop it down about 5 millimeters to give the hinge a recess pocket to sit into, so the rest of the cover can sit flush on the top where I've moved it. So an easy way to do it is just without even measuring, I'm just going to run this blade up until it removes all of that. And that'll be the height that I need this to cut into to remove wood. So then the next measurement I need to take is how much where I need to set my fence here. And so I know measuring this here, 5 millimeters. And so it's 5 millimeters plus whatever this ledge is here. .85. Gonna measure it just a few places just to confirm. Getting about 1.9 there. So I'm gonna go with 1 3/4. So that's gonna be 6 3/4 millimeter. Is where I'm going to want to set that fence. And so what I'm going to do is dial that up on here. And then I'm setting it to the back side of the tooth of the saw. That's the maximum that's going to cut. And so what I'm going to probably do is run a piece of wood through there first and just make sure that's going to work out before I run my finished product through here. But theoretically, I should be able to run this right through, and it'll cut the recess for the hinge. That looks about right. It might be a little deep. I'm going to lock it in right there. So now I'm going to run a piece of wood through that and test it. So here's my test piece of wood. I'm going to run a piece through there a little bit and see how that looks. So that's the depth I'm cutting. It's about 6.5. I think I'm going to go with that and adjust it for more if I need to. So I decided the thing to do would be just to cut these little pieces right here with a pull saw. There's that one, freed that one up. And then I'll do one here on this side. That one freed up, and there, it just popped off there. And so I can finish that, sand that up if I need to a little bit. So I'm going to check the hinge. Now the hinge will drop down in there and be mounted like that. And the surface of the top surface of this hinge is indeed flush with that, and that'll help. So the top of the lid will just come right around. So that worked out pretty good with the table saw. Now I'm just going to clean it up a little bit and mount it in there. So the next thing I want to do while I got this out here like this is go ahead and trim this hinge. So I've got the hinge marked here. I'm going to clamp it down. And here I can cut it right here. Need a respirator and some glasses. Going to use the Dremel here with a high-speed cutoff wheel. So at this point here, I have the hinge cut to the length I want. And so I could go ahead now and measure for my aluminum panel and cut the aluminum panel. So I'm going to measure here. I'm getting, let's see, about 229 millimeters. I'll go just a little bit long, and then I can file it in to fit on this side here. But I want it to come right to this edge here because a convenient way of lining the hinge up is to fold it on its back like that. When you put the panel in, you've got a stop here that you can use to attach it, and then actually when you fold it down, then you've got a straight line with the metal right across here. So I'm going to go with 229 and make that cut. So I've got the layout of the aluminum. I'm going to go ahead and make the cut here. So I've got to cut in this dimension. And now I just need to cut it to length here. And I'm going to cut this side now. So I left it a little bit long. I can file it in for a really tight fit a little bit later. Better to leave it long than to end up with it cut too short and then you can't do anything about it. So the hinge will go under there like that.